Ben, I wanted to circle back to you. Now, this is a Future of Cannabis panel, but it's also a time when I have you as a captive audience to ask you about how I should be investing or not investing in pot companies. So I'm actually curious, in your opinion, I think pot stocks are always a hot button topic. People are wondering about them and how sound they are. What makes a good, solid cannabis company investment or a cannabis company to invest in? What are the key characteristics that you look for?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to start with, it's very difficult to even answer that question in today's market because, you know, we haven't been around long enough to really establish the rights versus the wrongs in a company. I mean, what we always value whenever we're looking at any investment is a few different pieces of criteria, and it always depends on the sector and depends on the stage. I think first and foremost, it's always the team behind the company. Do they have a deep experience and a track record of a passion in that industry? What are they actually trying to prove, and what is the mission of the company in terms of what are they trying to achieve? Is it, you know, another piece that, you know, will just blend into the shelf, or will there be an identity and an awareness component, an actual quality aspect? Moving forward, it's always important to understand, you know, how are they growing and over what period? Are they showing signs of traction? Are they improving their unit economics in terms of scaling much more quickly and much more efficient? And those factors all come together to really understand how this cannabis investment comes to play. I mean, when we look at the different sides, you have, you know, something that I look at is CPG and software. And if we're talking about CPG, where I know, you know, Trina has a lot of experience here, there's two aspects that we consider, and John as well. And I think there's two aspects here that we consider. It's one is, you know, how are they acquiring the users? And I think a lot of that stands from differentiation. And I take it back to the obsessive approach of a customer and what are they doing to really refine that customer feedback loop to drive new purchases. One of our portfolio companies is called Headset. They provide retail intelligence on the different SKU data within dispensaries. What we see is that the top 5%, the top 5 brands in any category command over 50% of the market share within that respective category. Now, when we look at the rest of the brands, it's fragmented. It changes every single week. And the one thing we're noticing is why isn't there consistency in the top 10 rankings, the top 15? And that's because there's a lack of loyalty and there's a lack of retention. I think that John was talking about this earlier with, you know, how do you market to a company, to a consumer? How do you target them afterwards? So I think, you know, going down this route, these are all important factors to consider when we're looking at an investment in that CPG side. One thing to note is the quality as well. I mean, you know, with cannabis and hemp particularly, some people are concerned about the quality. And I think Trina could talk to this a bit more, but the lab testing environment, the certificate of analysis that needs to be completed. Leafly, one of the technology companies, they put out a survey where they surveyed 47 different CBD products. Of those 47 products, only half of them came in the realm of the required and estimated actual efficacy of what the dosage stated. The other half came between 0 to 150% in standard deviation. So do we really know as consumers what we're purchasing? And how could I as a consumer be confident that I'm purchasing the right product? Well, that's a lot on education as well. So all these factors combine together when we look at an investment and when we go deeper to understand what the company is really embodying.
Yeah. So one common refrain I hear with cannabis investments is to be leery of maybe folks that are reinventing the wheel and just kind of slapping the cannabis layer on there. Can you speak to maybe the having to be conscientious of that knowing that this one girder of federal prohibition is there that keeps kind of the Googles of the world or some of the big players of the world from making that jump over to cannabis, but not to be looking for folks that are cloning and reinventing the wheel, already kind of copying and grabbing ideas from other companies. Can you speak to maybe that balance or that apprehension of when you're looking to make a long-term investment for the life cycle of a company?
Yeah, so when we're looking at the companies that we see, I think one thing you mentioned just now is, you know, what is cannabis being actually used for? Is it being used as the product, like you are taking the cannabis, or is it used as an ingredient for a certain threshold, certain effectiveness? And I think companies that are, you know, just kind of blending in or using as a product companies that are actually, creating something new, providing something different, is actually using it as an ingredient. So there's examples of brands that are hyper focused on one certain criteria. There's a brand called Dreamt, which is a vape, which actually is hyper focused on providing melatonin aspects when you're going to sleep. And it's for that one specific use case of going to sleep. There's other certain brands that really have that hyper focused niche of different types of aspects as well. And I think, it's interesting to see that. I think if you look at 2 years ago, the only way or the only kind of opportunity that existing entrepreneurs saw was to go public. That's how an exit would have formed. You would sell yourself to a larger licensed producer. I think today there's a realm of new opportunity with the larger players, with CPG coming into play, with big tobacco, whether it's Imperial and Ultra, whether it's cosmetics companies like Sephora and Estee Lauder, looking at the hemp program, understanding what kind of efficacy could be used for that. And I think that opens up a realm of new opportunity. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity in the next 2 to 3 years to really create the product that would be used as an ingredient for specific use case to drive awareness and identity. And that's something that's going to last for the long term and not just the short term, what we're seeing today in the market.